working on rebuilding a Polaris 700. It had a rod bearing go out, which is fairly common on these 700s. And we're going to be stroking it. From doing research, looks like the only difference between the 700 and the 800 is the stroke. This is a crankshaft from Hot Rods. I ordered the kit off of eBay through Eastern Washington Sled Parts, and it came with everything you need to do a complete bottom end rebuild with new pistons, crank, bearings, seals, all that stuff. You can also get ones that come with new cylinders, but our cylinder was fine, so I didn't bother with that. This is the piston that comes in the kit from Eastern Washington Sled Parts. It's a Numera piston. I actually have used several of these over the years out of different kits and everything, and they're really nice pistons. They have a Teflon coated skirt. They're a cast piston with a high silicone content, and I mean, you can get them for really cheap and they work well. Now, part of stroking this to an 800 from a 700, it's going to have a longer stroke. So you can see here that the piston pin height on the 800 piston is higher than it is on the 700 piston. So we need to clean up the case and then start test fitting. If you are going to stroke your 700, put 800 crank in it, you can just buy an 800 balancing shaft, or I'm going to try and see red spots on the internet where you should be able to just grind spots down on your 700 balancing shaft and it'll fit. So we'll get the case cleaned up and we'll set the new crank in and the old balancing shaft and see what kind of clearances we can work out there. So we got the new crank in the top half of the engine case with the balance shaft in there. And you can see it's touching right here on the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on the grinder and narrow it up some. Alright, so we got it all ground down here, and you can see it's about as close as the old one was, so won't know how that affects the counterbalancing until we get it running, but I don't think it should be much of a problem. Got all new bearings from Hot Rods through Eastern Washington Power Sports. The eBay came in the whole kit. It's countershaft bearings, crank bearing, well, you always want to use a little assembly lube on your bearings, or a lot of it, whatever. It'll dissolve into the engine oil and come out with your first oil change. The 7 and 800 don't use a gasket between the two case halves, so they just use a RTV. And when you're putting the case half on the lower part of the motor, you want to make sure to line up these grooves here with the ring on the bearing that retains it and the ring on the crankshaft seal here. All right, I'll go ahead and tighten up the oil pump here. Got the case halves all together. This shaft right here on the oil pump is what your water pump impeller actually goes on. It goes through the housing to run the water pump. A little Loctite on all our screws. Alright, so you got a keyway here, and then the keyway in the gear. You gotta line them up. And then also there's marks on the gear. See that little dot right there? And there's a dot on the crankshaft gear that you gotta line up with that gear. You gotta put the cam up with that flat spot so that you can get the gear on. And kind of engage the keyway just enough. We can turn the balance shaft to line up the dots. You can see the two dots are lined up. The one's in the middle of the teeth and the other one's on a tooth. There was some Loctite left on this from before, but we'll go ahead and add some more. This one's going to be a little trickier to get on. You can see how the teeth are off a little bit because it's got springs in there. And then this pin just go in the hole on the cam right there. And it's got a timing dot on it as well, which lines up with the dot on this gear. I just did. Didn't you hear my elbow click? There we go. All turns smoothly. The noise you're hearing is just the rods rolling around in the cylinder. Actually, let's make sure we do a full revolution here. Make sure the crank's not hitting anything since it is a stroker crank. Line our dots back up. So those are lined up. Oh, look at that! I did 4 rotations because the cam's back. Put a little bit of lube on the seals here. Tap my first. Oops! Start. They're not dry. got a aluminum impeller. It's about the same price as buying the standard impeller from Polaris, but it's not plastic, so. One of the starter mounting bolts is broken off. I tried drilling it out and using a screw extractor and easy out to get it out. Couldn't get it out, so got some helicoils for it. So we're gonna drill it out and put one of those in. Had the lifters soaking in oil for a while now. And bloody mess. Alright, so we got our new valve seals installed, and the valves are all cleaned up and the head's all cleaned up, so we need to put the valves back in. You want to make sure you lube them up. Head gasket can only go on one way, so the dowel pins. Alright, when you torque these bolts, they're supposed to be lubed. I don't have any of the lube they specify, but I'm just going to use this engine assembly lube. They're to be torqued to 60 to 65 foot-pounds, and there is a torque sequence form. Basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do it in roughly 3 equal steps. We'll do 20, 40, and then 65. And use your torque wrench. You always want to go smooth. You don't want to jerk on it. Go ahead and just put the thermostat on since we're here playing around. Alright, now we're going to put the push rods and rocker arms in. Make sure you use plenty of assembly lube on these guys. Make sure they're all in, sitting in the lifters. Yep, they're all good. When you put these on, there's a little notch that sticks up here. Just put it in the groove right here. That's what keeps it from rotating. And then these are hydraulic lifters, so you don't have to set any backlash or anything. You just torque them down to 20 to 24 foot-pounds. Supposed to torque your valve cover bolts to 8 to 9 foot-pounds. Click, 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 click. 8 to 9. 8 to 9 is calibrated wrist. Anything more than that is calibrated elbow.